How dare, why is he saying these awful things to the most beautiful people? You know, and then by the fifth time, right?
There's a claim circulating right now that the Epstein files reveal Ellen DeGeneres as, and I'm quoting,
shining a light on something they don't want shined on.
Go, you can do whatever you want. No, it doesn't work that. In the industry, we've come to a very, very dark place.
For years, Hollywood has survived on one thing more powerful than money: silence. Not talent, not fame, not even influence. Silence. The kind of silence that hangs in rooms full of billionaires and movie stars. The kind of silence that follows after someone says something they were never supposed to say. The kind of silence that tells you everyone heard it, and nobody is going to acknowledge it. Because in this industry, secrets are currency. And the people protecting them? They're often the same people smiling on red carpets, giving emotional speeches and building brands around kindness, trust, and being one of the good ones. But every now and then, someone steps outside the script. Someone says the quiet part out loud. Someone points directly at the machine. And suddenly they're labeled crazy, difficult, dangerous, blacklisted. That's exactly what happened to Ricky Gervais. And depending on who you ask, it also happened to Jim Caviezel. Because
I didn't go out there and break the law. It wasn't mental. Everything was justified. I researched those jokes.
This directly from the Post's, Hollywood's most prolific cannibal, that she consumed human flesh.
Long before the newest Jeffrey Epstein files reignited public outrage, before the internet started connecting celebrity names like puzzle pieces, and before people started side-eyeing every famous friendship in Hollywood, there were warnings. Public ones. Loud ones. And almost nobody wanted to listen. Now one of the wildest claims making the rounds online involves Ellen DeGeneres. Not just criticism. Not just controversy. But a bizarre, disturbing accusation tied to the Epstein conversation that has sent conspiracy corners of the internet into overdrive. Some posts are calling her Hollywood's most protected secret. Others are pushing even darker claims so extreme they sound like something pulled from a horror movie. And while wild internet rumors should always be treated with caution, one part is true. Ellen DeGeneres' name does appear within the broader Epstein-related document index among hundreds of other high-profile individuals. That fact alone was enough to set the internet on fire. Because once her name entered that conversation, people started revisiting everything. The friendships, the jokes, the scandals, the sudden ending of her empire, and the people around her whose stories still leave questions behind.
Guess what? Pizza's here!
I made sure it was fair. I wouldn't say anything to go, well, that's not fair, he didn't do that. I'd go,
But before we get to Ellen, before we get to the documents, before we get to the names that now make people uncomfortable, you have to understand the room. Every January, Hollywood gathers for one of its favorite traditions, the Golden Globe Awards. It looks glamorous. Actors in designer tuxedos. Actresses in million-dollar gowns. Studio executives laughing over champagne. Producers sitting beside the same stars whose careers they control. Feels like a celebration. But underneath it, it's a power room. A room where careers are made and destroyed. A room where everyone knows exactly who matters. And for years, the producers kept inviting one man back to stand in front of all of them and say what nobody else would. Ricky Gervais. A British comedian with nothing to lose. A man who didn't care about being invited back.
If you hadn't have found it and printed it and told us we're furious. So it's just this vicious cycle. But no,
a man who understood something very important. His real audience wasn't the celebrities in the ballroom. It was the millions of people watching at home. As he later explained, he had a choice. Pander to the 200 richest people in the room, or speak to the 200 million regular people watching from their couches. For him, it was easy. And every time he hosted, he used that stage like a weapon. At first, Hollywood hated it. Industry press called him cruel. How dare he mock the beautiful people? How dare he say these awful things to the most powerful names in entertainment? But by the fifth time, even people inside the industry were secretly loving it, because someone was finally saying what everyone whispered.
Hello. Come on down. I lied. We weren't going backstage.
I didn't do anything it was not in public. I didn't do anything that was.
And then came that moment. The joke people still replay. The line that changed everything. I know he's your friend, but I don't care. That line landed like a gunshot, because he was talking about Jeffrey Epstein. And what made it unforgettable wasn't the joke. It was the silence after. Nobody laughed. Not really, because it didn't feel like comedy. It felt like recognition. If you go back and watch that room, it tells you everything. People freeze. Forks stop moving. Smiles disappear. Producers stop eating. Actors suddenly become very interested in staring at the table. Because he didn't need to say names. He didn't have to. Everyone in that room knew exactly what he meant. They knew the flights, the parties, the guest list.
They're allowed to be offended by things I've said. That's up to them. That's the good thing about freedom of speech.
The people who had been photographed together. The people who had been protected. The people nobody wanted investigated too closely. That's why the silence was louder than the joke. You don't laugh at a warning shot. You sit still and pray the next bullet doesn't have your name on it. Later, Ricky explained something important. He said he never went out there just to be offensive. He researched those jokes. He made sure they were fair. He didn't want anyone to say, "That's not true," because he wasn't inventing stories. He was pointing at behavior. Public behavior.
That was something they couldn't help. It was about their behavior.
Things already known. Things already whispered. He didn't out anyone. He simply removed the comfort of pretending. And that terrified people. Because in Hollywood, exposure is worse than scandal. Scandal can be managed. Exposure can't. Then came the second warning. And this one didn't come from a comedian. It came from the man who played Jesus, Jim Caviezel. This wasn't some random YouTuber shouting into a webcam. This was the actor Mel Gibson personally chose to lead The Passion of the Christ, a film that made over $600 million worldwide and became one of the most successful independent films ever made. After that movie, Jim had everything. Respect. Fame.
I can say what I want. You can say you're offended. I can care or not.
The future. He was positioned to become one of Hollywood's untouchables. Then he made a decision that changed everything. He signed on to Sound of Freedom, a film centered around child trafficking and the story of former federal agent Tim Ballard. You would think Hollywood would line up to support that. A movie about saving children? Who says no to that? Apparently, a lot of people. According to Jim, the resistance was immediate. Studios backed away. Executives warned people not to touch it. Funding became difficult. Distribution became a battle. People acted like the movie was radioactive. He claimed powerful figures made it clear. Don't produce it. Don't finance it. Don't distribute it. Don't even be seen near it. At one point, he publicly suggested that major industry power players were effectively warning studios that supporting the film could destroy their careers. That's a massive accusation. And Hollywood's response wasn't really denial. It was dismissal. Mockery. Label him unstable. Call him conspiratorial.
I don't care. And likewise, I know people are...
Make him easier to ignore than to answer. That strategy is old in Hollywood. Don't debate the message. Destroy the messenger. But the movie came out anyway. Without major studio support. On a fraction of a normal Hollywood budget. And it exploded. Over $250 million at the box office. The audience showed up. The industry didn't. And Jim kept talking. Because during filming, something clicked for him. He said there was a moment when someone shouted Epstein Island, and suddenly the scale of what he believed they were dealing with became clear. That was when he realized, in his words, that Epstein Island wasn't the only island. And that statement hit differently after the files. Because while Ricky was warning from a comedy stage, and Jim was warning from outside the system, someone else sat at the very top of daytime television. Smiling, dancing, telling America to be kind. Ellen DeGeneres. For years, her brand was simple. Be kind. It was everywhere. On the merch, in the intro, in interviews, in the entire identity of her empire. She wasn't just a talk show host. She was daytime comfort. America's afternoon safe space. The woman who danced into your living room and reminded everyone to be a little nicer. That image was powerful. And profitable. Very profitable. Which is why what happened next hit so hard. In 2020, dozens of former employees went public. Not one. Not two. Dozens. They described the workplace behind the Ellen DeGeneres show as toxic. Not kind. Not warm. Not uplifting. Toxic. Fear-driven. People described walking on eggshells. Stories of intimidation. Stories of mistreatment. Stories that made the Be Kind brand feel like performance art. One of the loudest voices was producer Hedda Muscat, who publicly described Ellen with words no one expected. Toxic. Phony. Hypocrite. Liar. And she wasn't alone. Former employees after former employees described an environment built on fear. Warner Media launched an internal investigation. 3 executive producers were fired. Complaints included racism, misconduct, inappropriate behavior, and a workplace culture that people said had been broken for years. Suddenly, America's kindness queen was fighting for her own reputation. When Ellen finally addressed it on her show, the apology felt careful. She said she was a work in progress, that she got impatient, frustrated, sad, angry, human. But critics noticed something. She never really said exactly what she was apologizing for. And many former employees didn't buy it. One of them said something that stuck. "She's known for 17 years. We were all scared of her." That line changed everything. Because fear is a very different story than kindness. And once people see behind the curtain, they rarely forget. In May 2022, after 19 years, the Ellen DeGeneres show ended. Just like that. An empire closed. And comedian Cat Williams said something many people in the industry quietly agreed with. Shows that profitable don't just end for no reason. Something bigger had to be happening. Something ugly. Something people weren't saying on camera. And then things got darker. Just 2 months after the show ended, Ellen's ex Anne Heche was gone. Then 4 months later, so was Stephen Twitch Boss, her longtime DJ, executive producer, and one of the most recognizable faces of the show. 2 deaths. 4 months apart. Both officially ruled. Both leaving behind questions that people still discuss. Anne Heche and Ellen had one of the most talked about celebrity relationships of the late 90s. When they dated publicly, it changed Anne's career. She later said doors closed after that relationship became public. Then in August 2022, her car crashed violently into a Los Angeles home. Fire everywhere. Smoke. Chaos. The footage spread instantly. And old interviews resurfaced. Especially one where she spoke carefully, but noticeably, about Ellen and the toxic workplace allegations. She didn't directly attack her. But she said something important. That the abusive environment described by staff was something she understood. That was enough to make people look again. Then came December 2022. Stephen Twitch Boss. The smiling face. The dancing energy. The man many people saw as the heart of Ellen's brand. His death shocked people because everyone around him described the same thing. No warning. No visible signs. No goodbye that made sense. His wife said he wanted to be everyone's Superman. His grandfather said he seemed normal. Happy. The same as always. The last text he reportedly sent was simple. "I love you." And then, years later, new details emerged. His wife later revealed that while going through their home, she discovered things she never expected, including a significant amount of hidden cocaine. She described it as deeply disturbing. She said she had no idea. That revelation reopened public questions. Not answers. Questions. 2 people connected closely to Ellen. Gone within months. Official conclusions on paper. Lingering doubts in public memory. And then came the Epstein files. In early 2026, the Department of Justice released millions of pages connected to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Suddenly, names were being searched again. Friendships re-examined. Photos revisited. And yes, Ellen's name appearing in the broader index reignited everything. But here's where things matter. Being named in documents does not automatically mean criminal wrongdoing. That distinction matters. A lot. Because internet culture loves one dangerous habit. Turning association into conviction. Still, people weren't just focused on the documents. They were looking at patterns. And one undeniable pattern involved Ellen's public closeness with powerful men later convicted of serious crimes. That part isn't rumor. That part is record. Names like Sean Diddy Combs. Names like Harvey Weinstein. Public friendships. Photos. Appearances. On-camera warmth. The kind of connections that look harmless until history rewrites them. And suddenly old clips hit differently. Even silly moments, like Ellen ordering pizza during the Oscars, became eerie to people obsessed with conspiracy theories, especially online where innocent moments get reinterpreted endlessly. That's the danger of hindsight. Everything starts looking like a clue, even when it may not be. Which brings us back to Jim Caviezel. Because his warning was never really about one person. Not specifically Ellen. Not specifically one celebrity. He described something bigger. He called it the 8-armed octopus. A system. A machine. You cut off one arm, one producer, one host, one executive, and the machine keeps moving. Because the structure survives. The protection survives. The silence survives. That idea is what makes people keep revisiting Ricky Gervais' Golden Globe speech. Because when he looked into that room full of A-listers and referenced Epstein, the reaction wasn't outrage. It was recognition. Even Tom Hanks became part of online conspiracy culture after reaction shots from that night went viral. For decades, Tom Hanks has been seen as America's safest celebrity, the lovable everyman, the father figure, the face of decency. From Forrest Gump to Toy Story to Sully, his image has always been trust, which is exactly why conspiracy theories target him so aggressively. Because Hollywood myths love contrast. The cleaner the image, the darker the accusation. But facts matter, and speculation is not proof. His name appearing in public discussions tied to Epstein-related social circles does not equal criminal evidence. That distinction matters. Always. Because this entire conversation sits at the dangerous intersection of truth, rumor, celebrity worship, and internet paranoia. And that's what makes it so powerful. People want villains. People want secret maps. People want a hidden explanation for how Hollywood works. Sometimes those explanations reveal real abuse. Sometimes they become fiction dressed as certainty. The hard part is knowing the difference. But one thing remains true. When powerful people protect each other, public trust disappears. And once trust is gone, every silence feels suspicious. Every friendship feels loaded. Every joke feels like confession. That's why these conversations never die. Because whether people believe every theory or not, they no longer believe the image. And in Hollywood, once the image cracks, everything underneath starts showing.